The college game has changed too much for us to be so focused on pass rush production, or at least we have to rethink what pass rush production actually means.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. We've talked about this pressure as production concept before. We're not going to do that again today because we've done it. But I thought there was an interesting point made on social media from Mark Oldacres, who writes about the Packers for Cheesehead TV, about how the Packers like players with pressures, not necessarily sacks. Again, I don't want to relitigate pressure versus production. But I think Justice Mosqueda, who writes for Acme Packing Company, has done a very good job of illustrating why it can be very flawed for us to be even looking at the pressure numbers of some of these collegiate players, because the way offenses have changed and then the way defenses have changed to combat those offensive changes provides a scant few opportunities to actually just go rush the passer. I went back and I looked. True pass sets faced last year. True pass sets. So it's not play action. It's not an RPO. It's a drop back, usually from the gun, 3-step, 5-step, and try and figure out where to go with the ball. So a true pass set. Michael Williams from Georgia, he only had 78 true pass sets in the regular season last year. In what 12 games? So they have 6 a game? I mean, that is crazy to judge a player's pass rush productivity when they're really only getting a handful of options per game to rush the passer. Now, someone like Donovan Ezeraku had 196 true pass sets. Well, then that's a real chance to diagnose what he's capable of doing. But for example, Shamar Stewart had 106, basically half the number of Donovan Ezeraku. James Pierce Jr. had 122. Michael Williams was 126th in his drafts class, not in the nation, in his draft class in true pass sets faced. Now, the problem for Michael Williams is the numbers were bad. The numbers were bad. But to me, true pass set production is more important than just looking at pressure numbers or even pressure rate. Because, and we've seen this, you go back and you look. There have been seasons for Packers, Kyler Fackrell is a great example, where you just convert a bunch of sacks off very few pressures. So that season he had 10 and a half sacks, but 18 pressures, something crazy like that. This stuff happen. So the sack numbers can be incredibly misleading. We know that part of it, but so can the pressure numbers. And I'm not making any excuses for these guys. I think true pass set. This is why I love someone like Derek Harmon, because he was elite producing in true pass set situations. Abdul Carter, a 36% win rate in true pass sets last year. That was fourth in the draft class, in what is essentially his first year as a full-time pass rusher. And if you go back and look, and again, All this conversation, oh, Lucas Van Ness was not productive in college. He was 27th. Now, that's not a great number. But he was 27th in true pass set win rate. He had a win rate of 23.5%. That's only a couple percentage points worse than like Will Anderson in Alabama. In fact, Brenton Cox had almost an identical win rate. Carl Brooks in that 2022 season, so before his 2023 draft class, he was 7th in win rate, 31%. Nick Herbig, who's the Pittsburgh Steeler, who has way outplayed his 4th round draft stock, was 2nd in the class in win rate. This, to me, is such a better illustration when they get the opportunity to just rush the passer, when they're not having to worry about, is it an RPO? Which, by the way, RPOs and play action, the design of it is to slow down the pass rush. The whole premise is to make sure that these pass rushers can't just pin their ears back and go, because they're so athletic. They're so freaky that if you know on 3rd and 8 they're coming, they're going to have the advantage. Even if you know as offensive linemen, hey, look, we got to get out of our stance. You've got that pre-bailed shotgun stance. You're don't even have your hand down. Like that. Yes, that stuff is difficult for an offense to deal with. And you look at this class. I just happen to be looking at the 2023 numbers. The top 3 players from the 2025 class in 2023, so 2 years ago, were Mike Green, who's going to be a 1st round pick, Princely Umanmielen, who's probably going to be a day 2 pick, and James Pierce Jr. They're the top 3 players in win rates in true pass sets in 2023. Nick Scorton, who's probably going to be a top 45, top 50 player, was 5th. Now, none of those guys were quite as good this year as they were last year. But these guys at the top, James Pierce Jr. still had a win rate of 29.8% in true pass set situations. That was 15th in the class. Mike Green is 16th in the class. Donovan Ezeraku, 25th. He was also very good in 2023. Nick Scorton, 33rd in this draft class. Now we're starting to get down in the ranks. Landon Jackson, 42nd in the draft class. Not great. 21.7% win rate. Shamar Stewart, 21.9% win rate. He's just ahead of Landon Jackson. Both of those guys could be potential Packers. But those win rates on 3rd down are significantly lower than Lucas Van Ness. But Lucas Van Ness was the 13th overall pick. Now the one that makes me nervous, especially because I really, really, really like the player, really like the tape, is Mykel Williams. 11.8% win rate. 140th in the draft class in win rate. That is brutal. Now, it is also important to understand that even when we say, okay, these are true pass sets, that you watch these games, especially like Big 12 games or some of these games where you're playing spread teams in the SEC, where you are legitimately playing a 3-man front. And I don't mean an odd front with 3 down linemen. I mean 3-man fronts. And if you're Landon Jackson at Arkansas or you're Mykel Williams at Georgia and you're having to play 4-eye and you're playing, head up or inside shade on the tackle, you're just not going to have very many opportunities to, by definition, get wide and rush the passer. So part of this is just the way that these defenses are being asked to play. Mike Elko, who ran the Texas A&M defense, was like, look, I didn't let them just go rush the passer. It's part of the way this is all designed. And so this is why the athletic traits become even more important. Because yes, it is just a projection. What the Packers are going to ask them to do is different. They're still going to have to do the things that they were asked to do, hold up against the run. But this was the Rashawn Gary conundrum. out there in the Dom Brown. He playing the 4-eye, going up against tight ends on the tackle side, facing constant double teams. Like, he just very rarely was able to get wide and run through you-know-whose face. Just didn't get very many opportunities to do that. So what you need is the athletic ability to do that. Do you have the ability to do that? That's what you want. But you would, in a perfect world, like to have some productivity on third down. Can you come in, especially the Packers? We talked about the don't screw it up draft yesterday. Can they come in and affect the game right away? Now, you don't want to index too much on that. But it would be nice. It would be nice to have someone who can come in and just at least be part of your rotation on third down right away. Now, I do think Shamar Stewart, Landon Jackson, Michael Williams, these guys who probably do need some seasoning, have that potential. I think Michael Williams in particular, elite run defender right away. Landon Jackson, I think, can be a very good run defender right away. So that could give them an opportunity to get on the field. And then you have the traits, you have the ability to get there. This might seem niche to you, and I would understand that. But to me, we need to be able to compare apples to apples, not just how many pressures did they get. No. How many opportunities did they get? And how, when they got real opportunities, quality opportunities, how did they take advantage? That's the question that the Packers are going to have to ask. Now, if they don't take a pass rusher in the first round, I have become convinced they're going to take a receiver. I just don't think it's going to be at 23. I'll explain why next on Locked On Packers. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. And hey, look, the Nuggets just fired their coach. The Grizzlies just fired their coach. So you might be able to get some really nice value here. Maybe you like one of those teams. Maybe you want to definitely bet against one of those teams. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance at an even bigger win. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your first $250, excuse me. I don't want to shortchange you, in bonus bets today. Let's say the top pass rushers are gone, or at least the guys that the Packers like. We've talked about, it's a narrow needle to thread here. If that's the case, I believe the Packers are going to draft a receiver. I also believe it will not be at 23 for a couple reasons. One is, I think they like Ted McMillan, and if he gets into the late teens, I could see them trying to move up to get him. I just think he is one of the true difference makers in this class, someone that I think is a top 10 sort of talent. And if he falls the same way like CeeDee Lamb did in 2020, and remember, apparently the Packers were trying to move up for Justin Jefferson in 2020. That was Ian Rappaport's reporting. I could see that. I could also see, okay, Michael Williams off the board, James Pierce Jr. is off the board, or not on the Packers board, let's say. Donovan Ezeraku, there was just some reporting from ESPN that there's a good chance now he could go top 15, that he's really coming on, and there's a late push for him, or at least maybe the media narratives are just catching up with what has always been there. But if that's the case, then there's all of these other players who will not have been drafted, right? That's the way that it works. If you draft player X, by definition, you can't draft player Y. I think right now, if I had to guess, at 23, Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, Jaden Higgins will all be there for the Green Bay Packers. And if that's the case, and those pass rushers are gone, remember that's part of this, you move down, and maybe even into the 30s. Can you convince, hey, Cleveland, do you want to come up to get that quarterback? Come get Jackson Dart. We'll give you a sweetheart deal to sit there at 33 and pick off one of these guys at 33. Because even if, God forbid, Ibuka and Burden come off the board, you still have a chance at someone like Jaden Higgins. I do wonder, like we've talked about the Emeka Ibuka part of this. He's the guy to me early because he's going to block. The question of, is he a slot or is he a boundary receiver? One of the reasons why I've been saying they need to get Jaden Reed on the field more is in 12 personnel, the Packers have not played Jaden Reed. It's been Malik Heath, it's been Bo Melton. But Chris Godwin plays in 2 receiver sets for the Bucs. Cooper Kupp plays in 2 receiver sets for the Rams, or at least he did. Because those guys block. So even if you're going to give him opportunities, and I think you can give Jaden Reed, he has the speed to play the Z, get Emeka Ibuka in the slot sometimes. I think Ibuka can play outside. But one of the problems you have is in 12 personnel, if you have a slot receiver out there, they're usually Jaden Reed sized, and so they don't block, or they're Luther Burden, and that's not something that they give a lot of effort on. I think Luther Burden can play outside in the NFL, but he's not going to block the way that Emeka Ibuka is. So if there's someone in the first round that I think they would absolutely have interest in outside of Tet McMillan, it's Emeka Ibuka. And maybe at 23, they go, wait, look, if we wait, we have to, we're not going to get him. But if they have these multiple options, they certainly can feel like they can move to 26, 28, even 30, and feel like they can get one of those guys. And if they can't, someone like Josh Connerly is probably going to be there. Maybe there's Trey Amos, the corner from Ole Miss, though they don't seem that interested in corners, which is interesting to me. They had Savon Revel in for a visit, but that was, I think, more about, getting a feel for where he is in his rehab. He's an injured player. Like a lot of the players that they've had in, it's not just that they're, players that the Packers could particularly like. It's like, okay, this player has character concerns. This player has size concerns. This player has injury concerns. You're trying to, as we talked about, mitigate the risk profile of those players by getting to know them as people a little bit more, getting a second glance at them. How are they moving? How's rehab going? What are you working on? What can we spend some more time with you to figure out what makes you tick? What motivates you? All those things are potentially important in the draft process. Someone like Emeka Ibuka is a clean eval. 9+ RAS, blocks, highly productive, blue blood program. And interestingly, if he would have come out last year, I think the Packers would have had interest in him in the first round. And I think, frankly, he would have gone top 20 in last year's class. Even in, that receiver class was better than this one. So I'm arguing against myself a little bit here. If they're going to take one of these guys at 23, Ibuka is the guy. But I think more likely Brian Gutekunst would like to get more picks. You can't get your pass rusher. Hey, we feel good about what receivers we can get top of the second. Let's move back and take that guy. This was very much, I hate to invoke this even, but that was very much, I think, the thinking with the Kevin King draft. They were not going to take TJ Watt. They wanted Kevin King. They wanted one of these corners, and they moved down thinking we know we can get the one we really like, which is Kevin King. So what if Jaden Higgins is the receiver they really like? Well, they can probably wait. What if Luther Burden turns out to be the one they really like? Now, I'd be surprised if they don't have him in, given some of the questions that are out there about, what makes him tick, let's say. But I don't see at 23 the Packers pulling the trigger on Matthew Golden, for example. He's just not the clean kind of prospect that if you're going to take a receiver, you take if you're the Packers. The productivity's not there. He wasn't even the number one receiver on Texas until like December. Interestingly, they've talked to both Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden from Texas. Maybe some intel on Kelvin Banks Jr., right? No, and they don't, this is perfect timing because they had another reported visit with an offensive lineman likely to go on day 3. They're looking at day 3 offensive linemen. Like, this is all lining up for receiver or edge early. I don't know if the Packers feel like they can justify it. And then we get back to what I've been saying for weeks now, that this is feeling a little bit like the Jordy Nelson draft, where you trade back into the 30s and you take the guy who ends up being the best receiver you could have taken in that spot. And the best receiver in that draft class, I think. I'm going to have to go back and look, but so that's where I am with where the receiver thing is. I do think the receiver interest is real. There's no getting around it. And I've seen this like, well, they're trying to, throw smoke at stuff. That 23rd pick, what are you talking about? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. And you have a finite number of visits. You have 30. You don't have enough time to waste on fake visits. Like, that's not a thing that's happening. No team is doing fake visits. If you're bringing someone in, it is to learn something about them that you think will be valuable to your evaluation, whether it is to disqualify them, whether it is to convince yourself to qualify them to draft them, or to just put a stamp on your eval. Hey, we feel really good about this player. Let's bring them in, do some last second diligence, and figure out if this is really the guy we want. That could be part of it too. And they had Christian Watson, and now Christian Watson had been hurt, but was out at the Senior Bowl. They just really liked him. And I think they wanted to get to know him better. They have those opportunities too. Romeo Doubs worked out. They wanted to get to know him better. Like, that's part of this process too. Let's shift gears here. There's a trade that I've been thinking about. And now that it seems like Travis Hunter might be the pick at 2, could suddenly become a reality. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Packers. You've probably heard of Chewy. They really do have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Whether you're shopping for food, treats, or even pet healthcare, Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. With over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands, Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food and treats to toys, beds, and grooming. And it's not just for dogs and cats. They've got supplies for fish, for birds, for reptiles, and small pets too. Chewy also makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescriptions, telehealth vet visits, and even in-person vet clinics rolling out nationwide. AutoShip is a game changer. You can set up automatic deliveries for food, treats, or essentials so you never run out. You can easily change or cancel it anytime. And listen, Chewy has everything, so you never run out of foods. You don't want to run out of treats for your pet. Come on. You like to spoil your pet. Be honest. Right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. If the New York Giants are in a position to draft Abdul Carter, they're probably going to do that, it seems. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston in New York now, Shedeur Sanders. Maybe not if you're Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, what you want out of a quarterback. Remember, that's the Josh Allen brain trust. So let's just say Abdul Carter is the pick at 3, because now the latest scuttlebutt is Travis Hunter 2 to the Browns. I talked to Spencer German, our Browns host, about that today, in fact, on Locked On Sports Today. That's kind of what got all the wheels turning in my brain about this. And let's say they do that. Well, they just traded for Brian Burns, and they paid him a lot of money. Now you're going to take Abdul Carter. And within a couple weeks of doing that, you will have to decide on the 5th-year option for Kayvon Thibodeau. And that's $16 million. Now, that's not a crazy number. You could just do it, but it's the kind of thing you do on a team that's competing to win a Super Bowl, and they are not that. So, could they consider trading Kayvon Thibodeau? The deadline is actually May 1st. So you only have a week after the draft to make that decision. When they draft Abdul Carter, they will know and maybe have already made the decision on what they're going to do with Kayvon. We're talking about a player who does not turn 25 years old until December. Does not turn 25. Like Tyler Shuck is older. Darian Porter Jr., who the Packers could take on day 2 of this draft at corner, is older than Kayvon Thibodeau. And is he, a bit of a flash pass rusher? Yes. But at $16 million, if you pick up the option, that's nothing for a player who could immediately walk in and be the starter opposite Rashawn Gary. You can't worry about the Lucas Van Ness piece. Sunk cost. To add someone like that. And you look at the Eagles. I mean, they paid a pretty penny for Bryce Huff. He didn't even play. Now they got good production out of Nolan Smith. Brandon Graham was still on that team. Jalix Hunt gave them some good reps, but they paid up for Bryce Huff. The Packers would get a free opportunity to look at Thibodeau and decide, hey, what do we want to do here? And Bryce Huff gave them nothing. He signed a 3-year, $51 million deal. That's 17 AAV. And you could get a younger player, probably a better player on balance. It's just something like we don't know if the Giants would entertain an offer like this. What could you get? What is the asking price to get someone like this? Would you do it on the weekend of the draft? You draft Abdul Carter, and now the Packers could make some calls. You're not going to give up a first-round pick. It's probably, you could do a pick swap. You send your third for their fourth, that kind of thing. I would do that. What do they want to pay him for? Now, it's not like he's expensive this year, but you have to make a decision on the option. So why not get something for him? He does cost $9 million in cap in 2025, but it's essentially all guaranteed because it's the roster bonus and the signing bonus that's been spread out. So they don't save any money by moving on from him, but they get something of value for him in the short run that they can then use to try and win some games this year to save your asses. Like, what do you care if Thibodeau is gone next year and you get a comp pick for him if you're fired? It doesn't help you. Wouldn't you rather get something for him now, Joe Shane? You like what you see? This is just a name that I thought of. If they want to, let's say they don't get the right pass rusher in the first round. They trade down and they get that receiver. And remember, they change the way that they look at some of their thresholds. Thibodeau definitely athletic enough. But in terms of like big, strong, fast, he's not the prototype. But he's 6'5", 260. Like, that's big enough. I think the Packers probably would have drafted him if they had the opportunity. They just didn't because he went 5th overall. The Packers don't get to draft 5th overall like ever. So you get to get a player with premium talent at a premium position for a non-premium price because a team might just want to get something for him now. That sounds like a triage opportunity worth exploring to me. Even if he's not going to change your life, he can make you better. All right, back tomorrow. I am working on a bunch of interviews for next week because I'm going to be on vacation. So we're going to have a ton of stuff for you next week. Excited to bring all that to you. But the rest of this week, some more. I'm going to talk receivers. I want to talk Dontavian Wicks breakout. We got a lot of stuff coming this week that I'm excited to bring you. I was like, there's too many things I want to get to in the show today. So let's wait. I had a bunch of notes written down. It's like, nah, we're actually going to save a bunch of this stuff because there's too much to get in. So here we are. Follow me on all the social medias, Peter Bukowski, wherever you find me, _ if you're on Twitter or Instagram. I'm not on TikTok, but Locked On Packers is for all the clips. Instagram for clips, YouTube for shorts. For all the full podcasts, we're there. Wherever you find podcasts, we're there. So you can stay Locked On Packers.